a lot of techies, technical people would actually go like, oh, my code is great, and how we go about it and all that, but maybe not really solving the problem. That's a good point there. Hello, guys, and welcome to another episode of Read Stories, where we talk to our past alumni and also current students to find out how they're doing and also what they're up to these days. And today, we are fortunate to have someone who is a senior data practitioner in the data science industry for years, close to a decade, I guess. He'll introduce himself in a bit, but let's welcome Wyhow.
Yeah, so I'm a data scientist most people call me a data scientist. I work in our nation's sovereign wealth fund. Most people call me a data scientist, but I see myself more as a person who solves problems using technology. The most basic work I do is construct Power BI reports. Sometimes it's for monitoring purposes. Sometimes I access third-party APIs to populate our warehouse with external data. Sometimes I automate reporting work for other departments, kind of usual boring stuff. The more exciting stuff is creating custom web applications. So it can be custom search engines, it can be displaying custom databases on the web, and so on. So ultimately, my job is to turn two other junior staff into full-stack data professionals. So hopefully they can become like me, then I'll have less work.
That is a very smart move. I mean, your scope here is kind of very wide, and I believe because you've been someone who is so experienced in the data industry, close to a decade right now. Like, how do you see the industry evolve since then?
I started in 2015 with Microsoft Excel. How do you use SUMIF? How do you use VLOOKUP? And so on. So that was what I started with. I found out that I took the Microsoft certification exams actually. I found out I was quite comfortable with it, so I decided to go on to the next step. I moved on to R and eventually Python. So back then, I was a lecturer at a private college. No one knew the word data scientists belong together. No one knew what they did, probably caused by my small network and so on. Now, I notice that every university is pumping up data professionals like there's no tomorrow. So it's good to see that the prominence of this role coming up in a lot of companies. However, there's still a number of obstacles. So you've got weak communication problems by students, you've got weak presentation skills. There are also programs offered by universities and third-party providers that are not regularly updated, because most companies are starting to move to applications in the cloud. A lot of these training providers are still stuck in the past. There are also vendors which provide poor quality training. I'm quite glad that Lead is not one of them. And there's also an insufficient supply of data professionals who have a good balance of both business and technical. So they can not only do the technical work, they can also speak to audiences of a non-technical background. So these are the four main problems that I see in the industry nowadays.
On the ground inside, and thanks for that, for dropping here. You started with, you mentioned Excel, R, then Python. I mean, that is an evolution in a way you can call it, but how do you feel about that, and how do you see the whole thing going forward?
No, I think I just want to keep on trying more material, try and find out where my limit is. So I think that's just my personal motivation. I just like challenges.
I know recently you actually joined us for our web development skill bootcamp. So what makes you look into web development skill?
I just wanted to upgrade myself because I noticed that a lot of universities are teaching students how to use Colab, how to use Jupyter Notebook, and so on. I can't stay in this comfort zone for long. That's why I decided to pick up a new vertical. So I just want to stand out among the competition, and hopefully I can develop new things. I can solve other problems that a few other people can. So my next few areas I'm targeting are cloud computing and UI UX. So it's not enough to just build the back end. It's not enough to just build the front end. You need to make it scalable, and you need to make it look nice to people who are eventually using it. So all of this is actually part of a long-term plan.
Wow, that's amazing. I mean, you're a few people that are literally constantly on the go in terms of upgrading yourself. And so what do you see? I mean, just now earlier you mentioned about like creating custom web application was part of one of your work scope. So is how does web development comes into this helping you in creating this whole?
Standard visualization tools like Power BI allow you to display data from a database. So the data transfer is usually one way. But let's say if you want people to interact with the app, Power BI cannot do that because if you want to if you want to capture user input like search terms, like how Google does it, Power BI can't do that. So that's why I thought of branching out into web applications. So the data transfer is now two ways. One is from the database, one is from the user.
I see.
That's right.
So,
and Power BI, you notice that if you hook it up to certain databases, it can slow down. With web apps, I have more control over the performance.
right. Understand that. So what is your, I mean, since you're picking up web development, what is your like biggest challenge at the time? Is it something like an on-job requirement, or is it a difficulty or challenge that you face?
I think I reached the limit of what I can do with my existing tools. That's why I wanted something that can give me maximum flexibility in terms of development options. Because with web apps, I can design however way I want to capture user input. I can design however way I want to display whatever it is I want to display, and so on. So it's more on flexibility. I once considered low-code solutions provided by other vendors. The problem is, number one is cost. Number two is the vendor lock-in. So let's say if I want to migrate that data somewhere else, there might be problems with that. So I just don't want to be stuck with that, considering that a lot of my projects are still in the development phase. I don't want to be tied down to, I don't want to put in any unnecessary obstacles.
Right. So that is also a big part of reason why you actually pick up web development skills, to be able to customize. All that. I see. You mentioned about low code kind of platform and also their limitations. Isn't that like a better approach towards development?
If you're pressed for time and you have the luxury of budget, then go in. Low code solutions are also okay. I don't have to pump out something in 2 weeks. I actually have a few months to do this. So that's why I thought of picking up this skill and developing this internally. So it's also to send a message that, hey, we don't have to constantly rely on vendors. We can actually do this in-house and so on. So it's also good for developing my own portfolio.
I see. That is a very strategic move. So how do you, I mean, that is the challenge you mentioned just now. How do you overcome it?
It was scary in the beginning because I initially tried out mobile app development using Android Studio. Boy, it was difficult and painful. So that was 1 year ago. And I just so happened that I was scrolling through Facebook and I think I saw the ad for Zero to Market. So I thought, why not just gather my courage and give it another shot. If I fail, then so be it. Then it turns out to be quite a useful course.
Right. I love your spirit though. Do it and see whether it fails, and that's the learning experience you're gonna pick up there. What do you say? I mean, that you're different compared to before you joined like the Zero to Market bootcamp versus before that.
Technically, I can deploy more front-end capabilities now instead of just relying on Power BI and Google Data Studio. One thing I do like is I really like designing web apps. That's something I discovered. I've always been more of a left brain person. It's now that I've picked up the ability to design this kind of web apps, I'm starting to see, does this color fit together, does this shape fit, and so on. So it's a good way to express my creativity as well, my dormant creativity.
Dormant creativity, I like how you put it. All right, so more on the front end, you enjoy actually doing it. Is there like any frameworks or libraries that you use for going about this process?
So the course covered Tailwind CSS and Vue.js, I think. Exploring on my own now is Vanilla.js and Daisy UI. So I'm starting to explore other external libraries just to expand my capabilities further, because I noticed that Nuxt actually has a few conflicts with a few external libraries, so I'm trying to find out what's the best way to address all of that.
What is something that you love about like going through Zero to Market, and also something that we miss?
The 1 hour daily 1 hour daily structure is
right.
Good, definitely. It fits well to my schedule. Sometimes I do it in the morning, sometimes I do it at night. There was once I did it on the train before. I noticed that your course BS360 is 4 full day course. I cannot do that. Sorry. I don't have that kind of mental stamina to focus for 8 hours straight. So 1 hour I think is just nice.
So is going through as a data practitioner for that long, is web development skill essential for data science practitioner? And also, what is your advice for them? Is, let's say, someone who is new in data science industry, what's the advice to pick up web development skills?
Web dev essential. Oh, of course.
Yes.
It's another way for you to display your work. So instead of relying on data visualization tools where the charts that you display is more or less fixed, the number of options you have is more or less fixed. This one, you can build almost anything you want. I also consider that if you're pressed for time, there are low-code solutions available by a few other vendors. So I noticed that in my projects, no matter how clean my code is, no matter how, in terms of the code performance, it runs quite quickly. No one really cares about that. But people do care how the work is presented. So that's why I picked up front-end development work.
So you mentioned no one actually care about the whole process within it, is it?
At least not my business users. My team probably cares because any slow queries, my users will complain. But that's it. People don't really care about the code. It was like picking up a new language for me. I think it's common for those in the tech sector. So people might also find it a transition to move from a notebook-based platform to VSC, because in VSC you'll be dealing with multiple files, in Notebook you'll be dealing with one. So it comes with practice. You'll need courage to do it, but if it works out, you have all the upside to gain.
I mean that's a very great point that you highlighted there just now, which is people actually, from a business user's perspective, they actually don't want to know what code you're using or what. They don't care. It's just whether you're able to solve their problem eventually.
Yeah.
I think that's something that a lot of techies, technical people will actually go like, oh, my code is great, and how we go about it and all that, but maybe not really solving the problem. That's a good point there. Lastly, what is your advice for other individuals after everything that you've gone through, especially if they're not from a technical background or not from software or IT kind of background?
It's always scary to pick up new technical skills. Not just coding, it can be anything. Can be mathematics, could be accounting, and so on. But if you look at the grand scheme of how everyone works, right? You look at medical professionals. You follow the wrong procedure, patient dies. Give the wrong medicine, patient gone. Certain other companies, you don't follow regulations or guidelines, you get multi-million ringgit fines. I think that when you pick up these kind of technical skills, the worst that can happen is your code doesn't work. That's it. Error messages can be a bit intimidating to read, but once you get used to it, it's actually quite easy to navigate, because the error codes actually contain clues on where you should look. So these kind of technical skills, it is scary. I admit. I did not study coding when I was in university. It's just that I decided to take that chance, and so far it's been working. It's also a lot easier to pick up these kind of technical skills now compared to back in 2015, because back then no one knew what data scientists were. Now we've got a lot more mentors, we've got a lot more resources. So among your network, try and find people who are in this industry. Get some advice from them if you're keen to embark in this new technical skills, and just be disciplined enough to follow through your commitment, whether it's picking up a new course on online courses, picking up a new course on Lead, and so on. So discipline and courage. I
think people know it, but putting it to practice, that's the key. And I believe you are the shining example here that you're already putting it into practice and picking a new skill, implement it immediately. All right, so I guess that wraps up our session. Is there any last words you want to share with our audiences before we get going?
If you'd like to try getting your hands dirty in web development, this is a course worth exploring, I'm sure. You just need to be disciplined enough. There may be late nights involved, especially when it comes to debugging. But this suffering is temporary. Your advantages will be yours for your life.
All right. Thanks, Wyhow, for this session today, and your Golden Nuggets insights was amazing just now. Yeah. So thanks again for those of you who are watching in, and thanks, Wyhow. All right. See you in the next video, guys.